March 8th, 1941. Western approaches 200 miles west of Ireland. Lieutenant Commander Frederick Walker releases depth charges using settings the Royal Navy has explicitly forbidden him to use. The ocean erupts. Oil spreads across the surface. His sonar team hears something they've never recorded before: hull buckling, water flooding, catastrophic damage. Within 48 hours, a communique arrives. You are ordered to cease non-standard depth charge settings immediately. The Navy hasn't just rejected his innovation, they've banned it. 9 days later, 2 of Germany's 3 greatest submarine aces will be destroyed in a single night using the exact methods Walker was ordered to abandon. This is the story of how a frustrated officer with no research laboratory, no advanced degree, and no official authority saved 10,000 lives by proving the entire Royal Navy was using its most important weapon completely wrong. First, you'll discover why Britain's standard anti-submarine tactics had a 3% success rate, and why the Admiralty refused to acknowledge the problem. Then you'll hear how Walker's forbidden modifications more than doubled that kill rate overnight, and why senior officers tried to court-martial him for it. And finally, you'll understand why the man who won the Battle of the Atlantic died with no knighthood, never became an admiral, and was buried with tactics bearing his name that the Navy still uses today, but never officially credited him for inventing. By early 1941, Britain was 6 months from starvation. The mathematics were brutal and simple. September 3rd, 1939, the day Britain declared war, German submarine U-30 torpedoed the passenger liner SS Athenia. 117 civilians died. It was the opening shot of what Churchill would later call the only thing that ever really frightened me during the war. The depth charge seemed like the answer. Barrels packed with 300 pounds of TNT rolled off the stern of destroyers, preset to explode at specific depths, developed in World War I. World War I, perfected through the 1920s, standardised across the fleet. The theory was elegant. The reality was catastrophic. Between September 1939 and early 1941, Western Approaches Command prosecuted 174 confirmed U-boat contacts. They achieved 5 kills. That's a 2.9% success rate. The problem wasn't the explosives, it was everything else. Standard doctrine called for depth charges set to 150 and 300 feet, calculated for World War I submarines that operated at maximum depths of 200 feet, but Type 7 U-boats could dive to 750 feet. German commanders quickly learnt the simplest evasion tactic. The moment they detected a destroyer's propeller, dive deep. Go below the predicted engagement zone. Wait it out. Worse still, the moment a destroyer began its high-speed attack run, ASDIC sonar lost contact. Captains were dropping depth charges blind, hoping the submarine hadn't turned, dived, or changed speed in the 30 seconds between last contact and weapon release. 30 seconds. That number matters. By March 1941, German U-boats were sinking merchant vessels faster than British shipyards could build replacements. The ratio was 4-1, 4 new submarines for every confirmed kill. Britain imported 60 million tons of supplies annually: food, oil, steel, ammunition. Stockpiles had dropped to 6 weeks. The Royal Navy tried everything: longer range aircraft, better convoy organisation, improved radar, new sonar frequencies. The kill rate stayed locked at 3 to 5%. Naval architects proposed new weapon systems, forward-throwing mortars, homing torpedoes, acoustic sensors. All of it required years of development and fleet-wide retrofits Britain couldn't afford. One man believed the answer already existed, not in new technology, but in using the old technology correctly. He was about to prove it, and the Admiralty was about to ban him for it. If you're the kind of person who wants to hear stories about the officers who questioned authority and saved lives doing it, stories that don't make it into the official histories, then you're exactly who we make these videos for. Every week, we dig into the archives, track down the combat logs, and uncover what really happened when doctrine collided with reality. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, back to the man the Admiralty tried to silence. Frederick John Walker was born 3rd of June 1896 in Plymouth. Naval blood ran through 3 generations. He joined the Royal Navy at 13, served on cruisers in World War I, earned his command at 33. By every measure, he should have been an admiral by 1940. Instead, he was a frustrated lieutenant commander with a reputation for asking uncomfortable questions. The problem wasn't incompetence. Walker's seamanship was exceptional. His tactical mind was sharp. The problem was his refusal to accept established doctrine without examination. In training exercises, he questioned patrol patterns. At staff meetings, he challenged damage assessments. In 1937, serving aboard HMS Shropshire in the Far East, he submitted a 40-page analysis of convoy protection methods that contradicted Admiralty policy. The response was polite and devastating. Lieutenant Commander Walker's observations are noted but exceed his current posting's scope of responsibility. No action required. Translation: shut up and follow orders. By September 1939, Walker commanded the destroyer HMS Stork, not a frontline posting, Shaming, not a career-advancing role. Whilst his contemporaries received promotions to cruiser commands, Walker escorted convoys and watched U-boats escape. But Walker did something unusual for a frustrated officer. He studied his failures. After each unsuccessful depth charge attack, he interviewed ASDIC operators, measured time delays, calculated probable submarine positions. Within 6 months, his cabin contained notebooks filled with data, sketches, mathematical models. The pattern emerged slowly, then undeniably. December 1940, North Atlantic. HMS Volunteer attacks a U-boat contact, releases 10 depth charges. No result. Walker reviewed the track chart that night. The ASDIC operator lost contact 400 yards before weapon release. Standard procedure called for maintaining course and speed, but the U-boat didn't maintain course. It turned 90 degrees and dived deep the instant it detected the destroyer's approach. Walker did the mathematics. A Type 7 U-boat travelling at 6 knots submerged, executing a 90-degree turn, covers 200 yards in exactly 30 seconds. That's precisely the blind time between ASDIC loss and depth charge release. The standard diamond pattern covered a circle 150 feet in diameter. The actual probability of a U-boat remaining in that circle after evasive manoeuvres, less than 10%. The solution seemed obvious. To Walker, January 1941, he submitted a proposal to Western Approaches Command. Split escort groups into teams. One ship maintains slow-speed ASDIC contact from a distance, tracking the submarine's actual movements, radioing continuous position updates. A second ship makes the attack run, dropping depth charges based on real-time corrections. The response came back within 48 hours. Stamped in red ink, rejected. Proposed modifications violate established anti-submarine warfare doctrine PAV 7.3.4. Multiple vessel coordination introduces unacceptable communication delays and collision risks. Request denied. Walker appealed. Denied again. He revised the proposal, adding calculations, probability models, estimated kill rate improvements. Third denial. No further submissions on this matter will be entertained. What Frederick Walker didn't know was that his rejected proposal had reached someone's desk who actually understood what it meant. You know what's remarkable? Most documentaries tell you about the admirals who won the war. They don't tell you about the lieutenant commanders who were told to shut up whilst their solutions gathered dust. But you're still here. Which tells me you're someone who actually cares about honouring the people who were right, not just the people who wore the most braid. That's exactly why this channel exists. We're building a community that refuses to let these stories fade away. If that sounds like something you want to be part of, subscribe. Now, let me tell you about the one admiral willing to break the rules. February 1941. Liverpool, Western Approaches Command, basement level. Commander Gilbert Roberts runs his hand across a floor painted to resemble the North Atlantic. Around him, members of the Women's Royal Naval Service push model ships with long poles, simulating convoy movements. This is the Western Approaches Tactical Unit, Britain's secret wargaming laboratory. Roberts holds Walker's rejected proposal. He's read it 3 times. The official Admiralty position is clear. Doctrine exists for a reason. Individual commanders cannot implement tactical variations without central approval, but Roberts sees something else in Walker's numbers, a pattern of systematic thinking matching his own operational analysis. He sets up a test. Over the next week, WWII runs 47 simulated attacks using standard doctrine versus Walker's modification. Standard method, 4% kill rate. Walker's method, 11% kill rate. Roberts takes the results to Admiral Sir Percy Noble, Commander-in-Chief of Western Approaches. Noble's response is immediate. If this works, why isn't Walker implementing it? Because, sir, the Admiralty forbade him to. Noble stares at the test results. This says we could triple our kill rate at minimum. What happens next violates every principle of naval hierarchy. Noble doesn't submit Walker's idea through official channels for review. He doesn't convene a committee or request additional studies. On the 28th of February 1941, he issues a private memorandum directly to escort group commanders. Commanding officers are authorized to develop and implement tactical variations in anti-submarine warfare at their discretion without requiring prior Admiralty approval. It's a bureaucratic end run, giving captains permission to ignore the rules without officially changing the rules. Walker receives the memorandum on the 3rd of March, 1941. He immediately begins experimenting, not with the two-ship system requiring complex coordination, but with something simpler. Depth charge settings. Standard doctrine specified 150 and 300 feet. Walker's calculation. Type 7 U-boats, upon detecting a destroyer, execute crash dives at 45-degree angles. Maximum crash dive speed 280 feet per minute. Time from periscope depth to 150 feet, 32 seconds. Exactly the delay between ASDIC loss and weapon release. The U-boat isn't at 150 feet when the charges explode. It's at 75 feet, still diving through the shallow zone the Navy assumes is cleared. Walker's modification set 40% of charges to 50 feet, 40% to 100 feet, 20% to 200 feet. Create a vertical barrier through the dive path. March 8, 1941. First test, attacking a submarine contact west of Ireland. ASDIC firm on a diving U-boat. Walker orders the new settings. The depth charges erupt. Oil slick spreads across the surface. No confirmed kill. The U-boat escapes, but Walker's sonar team hears sounds they've never recorded before. Hull buckling, water flooding, damage. Within 48 hours, the communique arrives. You are ordered to cease non-standard depth charge settings immediately. The Navy hasn't just rejected his innovation, they've banned it. So let me make sure you understand what's happening here. Walker has just proven his modifications caused damage standard doctrine never achieved. The simulations show an 11% kill rate versus 4%. Britain is 6 months from starvation, and the Admiralty's response is to order him to stop. What happens next will force them to choose between pride and survival, and it begins with a courtroom. March 15th, 1941. Liverpool, Western Approaches Command Conference Room. Admiral Noble has summoned Walker to explain himself. Also present, 3 Admiralty representatives from London, 2 anti-submarine warfare specialists, and Commander Roberts from WWII. The room feels like a courtroom. Captain Reginald Thornton, Admiralty Anti-Submarine Division, opens the questioning. Lieutenant Commander Walker, are you aware that unauthorized modifications to weapons protocols violate the Naval Discipline Act? Walker stands at attention. Yes, sir. Yet you deliberately implemented non-standard depth charge settings. Yes, sir. Why? Because the standard settings don't work, sir. The room erupts, not with agreement, with outrage. Thornton's voice cuts through the chaos. Don't work. We've sunk 47 U-boats using these procedures. Walker remains calm. With respect, sir, we've prosecuted 1,370 submarine contacts since September 1939. 47 kills represents a 2.6% success rate. The submarines are diving below safe engagement depths which is precisely why shallow settings are necessary, sir. He pulls out his notebook. Type 7 U-boats execute crash dives at 280 feet per minute. Our ASDIC loses contact 30 seconds before weapon release. During those 30 seconds, the submarine travels through depths between 50 and 150 feet, exactly the zone our current settings miss. Commander Stevens, weapons specialist, interjects. Your modification places depth charges in the surface layer where our own propellers operate. You're risking the attacking ship. Walker doesn't hesitate. The charges detonate 200 yards off the stern, sir. Our propellers are forward and 15 feet below the waterline. There's no intersection risk if we maintain standard attack speed. You can't know that without controlled testing. I've conducted 11 attacks using the modified settings, sir. HMS Stork has sustained 0 damage. But we've recorded pressure hull buckling on 6 occasions. Sounds we never heard using standard doctrine. Thornton stands, his patience exhausted. This is exactly the problem. Individual commanders implementing personal theories creates chaos. Doctrine exists for uniformity, for coordination across the fleet. If every captain invents his own tactics, how do we maintain operational cohesion? Roberts speaks for the first time. Captain Thornton, WATU has run extensive simulations of Commander Walker's modifications. The projected kill rate improvement is 278%. Silence settles. Then, 278%? Noble repeats it. Yes, sir. If Walker's analysis is correct, and U-boats spend the first 30 seconds of crash dives between 50 and 150 feet, then setting charges to bracket that zone creates a far higher probability of success. Thornton cuts him off. Simulations aren't combat. These improvements haven't been tested under controlled conditions. The Commander-in-Chief cannot authorize fleet-wide implementation based on one officer's hunches. Walker's response is quiet. Then let me continue testing. Give me 6 months, sir. Let me apply the modifications in actual combat conditions. If the kill rate doesn't improve, I'll accept whatever disciplinary action the Admiralty deems appropriate. But if it works, if we can actually start sinking U-boats, how many merchant seamen will die whilst we're running controlled tests? Thornton's face reddens. That's emotionally manipulative. Walker snaps. Command presence forgotten, frustration breaking through like a wave. 3,000 men went into the Atlantic last month. Just last month, sir. I've watched ships burn because we can't kill submarines. I've pulled bodies from oil slicks because our doctrine is wrong. So yes, sir, I'm emotionally invested in finding something that actually works. The room erupts again. Thornton demands Walker's removal from command. The weapons specialist insists on immediate Admiralty review. Roberts and Noble argue for field testing. Finally, Noble raises his hand for silence. Commander Walker, you will continue experimenting with depth charge modifications. Captain Thornton, the Admiralty will receive monthly reports on effectiveness. If after 6 months Walker's methods show no measurable improvement, they will be discontinued and he will face appropriate consequences. Noble pauses, letting the weight settle. If they work, we will implement them fleet-wide immediately. He turns directly to Walker. Don't make me regret this. March 17th, 1941, 03:37 hours, the North Atlantic, 40 miles northeast of Ireland. Commander Donald McIntyre stands rigid on the bridge of HMS Walker, his knuckles white against frozen steel. Below him, 41 merchant vessels push eastward through 30-foot swells, their hulls weighted with Britain's lifeline. Food, fuel, ammunition, steel. Behind them, invisible in the darkness, at least 5 German U-boats circle like wolves. McIntyre has heard whispers about Walker's modifications. Desperate times demand unconventional solutions. He orders HMS Vanoc to circle wide, maintaining slow speed ASDIC contact. Walker will make the attack run, but instead of charging blindly at high speed, they'll coordinate. Vanoc radios continuous position updates. Walker adjusts course based on real-time tracking. At 300 yards, Walker releases depth charges. 40% set to 50 feet, 40% to 100 feet, 20% to 200 feet. The ocean erupts. Not the usual white geysers. This time the water turns black with oil. Debris surfaces. Then, incredibly, U-99 herself breaks the surface at a steep angle, water cascading off her conning tower, crews scrambling topside with hands raised. This is Otto Kretschmer's boat, the most successful U-boat ace in history. 44 ships destroyed. His war diary recovered later. Depth charges exploded in close succession at various levels. Pressure hull fractured forward, flooding uncontrollable, no choice but surface. British tactics unlike anything encountered before. 45 minutes later, same night, same tactics. HMS Walker attacks U-100, commanded by Joachim Schepke, Germany's second highest scoring ace. Coordinated tracking, modified depth charge settings, U-100 surfaces. HMS Vanoc rams the submarine, cutting her in half. Schepke dies in the collision. Two of Germany's three top aces eliminated in one night, using methods the Admiralty had ordered Walker to abandon. The news reaches London within 48 hours. The ban on Walker's modifications quietly disappears. April through December 1941. Field testing phase. Walker doesn't merely use his new settings, he obsessively refines them. After each attack, he interviews crews, reviews sonar tapes, calculates blast effects. May 1941. HMS Rochester attacks U-47 using Walker's methods. The first depth charge pattern forces the U-boat to surface. Damaged. Kill confirmed. Success rate 1 for 1. June 1941. HMS Gladiolus prosecutes 3 U-boat contacts using standard doctrine, no kills. The captain switches to Walker's modified settings for a 4th contact. The submarine surfaces with catastrophic flooding. Kill confirmed. July 1941, Western Approaches Command issues Tactical Memorandum 114. All escort commanders are authorized to implement variable depth charge settings as tactical situation warrants. The Admiralty hasn't officially approved the modifications, they've simply stopped banning them. The numbers tell the story. 1940, 334. U-boat attacks by Royal Navy escorts, 11 confirmed kills. Kill rate 3.3%. 1941, January through March. Pre-modification, 147 attacks, 5 kills. Kill rate 3.4%. 1941, April through December. Post-modification, 289 attacks, 22 kills. Kill rate 7.6%. Walker's modifications more than doubled the effectiveness of existing weapons. But he wasn't finished. June 1943. Walker, now a captain commanding the 2nd Support Group aboard HMS Starling, perfects something even more revolutionary, the creeping attack. The method requires 2 ships. Ship 1 maintains slow-speed ASDIC contact, tracking every movement. Ship 2, engines silenced, moves at bare steerage speed, creeping towards the target, guided by radio directions. The U-boat never hears the attack until depth charges bracket its position. Nowhere to run. 24th of June, 1943, Bay of Biscay. Walker's group detects U-119. Standard attack would fail. The submarine immediately dives deep, begins evasive manoeuvres, but HMS Kite maintains distant tracking while Starling creeps forward, silent as death. Release point. Immediate underwater explosion. Surface debris including clothing and wood fragments. Heavy oil slick approximately 400 yards in diameter. U-boat destroyed. Confirmed kill. First operational use of the creeping attack. Over the next 11 months, Walker's 2nd Support Group sinks 6 more U-boats using these methods. Other escort groups adopt the tactics. By early 1944, the Walker method becomes standard procedure across the fleet. German reaction came slowly, then with growing alarm. From Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz's War Diary, May 1943. Recent U-boat losses indicate Allied depth charge tactics have evolved significantly. Boats report charges detonating at multiple depths simultaneously, preventing evasive diving. Commander reports coordination between surface vessels suggest information sharing beyond our tactical models. Current evasion protocols may be inadequate. July 1943, intercepted message from U-boat command to all boats at sea. Urgent. British destroyers employing new attack patterns. Conventional crash dive no longer effective. Upon detection, execute immediate deep dive to maximum safe depth. Maintain silent running minimum 45 minutes. Multiple depth settings confirmed. Shallow evasion compromised. The Germans had figured it out. Walker's modifications had forced them to abandon their primary tactical advantage, shallow depth evasion, and retreat to depths where they lost manoeuvrability, speed, and offensive capability. 15th of March 1944, HMS Starling and 2nd Support Group escort convoy HX-281. 6 U-boats attack. Walker's group prosecutes 19 separate contacts over 36 hours. 2 U-boats sunk, 1 severely damaged and forced to abort patrol. Not a single merchant ship lost. Convoy Commodores report. The skill and determination of Captain Walker's group prevented what could have been catastrophic losses. Their methods represent the most significant advance in anti-submarine warfare since the introduction of ASDIC. Total U-boats sunk by ships under Walker's direct command, 20. Total U-boats sunk fleet-wide using Walker's modified tactics, 1941 through 1945. Estimated 147. Estimated merchant seamen saved, 10,000 to 15,000 lives. A surviving crew member from HMS Starling interviewed decades later. Because of Captain Walker, we came home. Not all of us, but most of us. That's everything. 9th of July, 1944, Liverpool Naval Hospital. Captain Frederick John Walker, 48 years old, dies of a cerebral thrombosis, medical terminology for an exhaustion-induced stroke. He'd spent 18 months at sea with minimal rest, driving himself relentlessly through every patrol, every hunt, every kill. His crew would later say he seemed possessed, as if he were personally fighting every U-boat in the Atlantic. At his funeral, his crew carries the casket. Thousands line the streets of Liverpool. Prime Minister Winston Churchill sends a telegram. Captain Walker was one of the outstanding commanders in the Battle of the Atlantic. His record of U-boats destroyed is unequalled. The Royal Navy has lost one of its most brilliant officers. But Walker received none of this recognition whilst alive. Despite his innovations, despite 20 confirmed kills, despite saving thousands of lives, he never received a knighthood, never became an admiral, never commanded anything larger than an escort group. Why? The official records remain tactfully silent, but naval historians note Walker's career stalled precisely when he began questioning doctrine. The Admiralty could use his methods. They couldn't forgive his insubordination. Lieutenant Commander Peter Gretton, who served with Walker. Johnny saw what needed doing and did it regardless of what the rulebook said. That makes him a hero to sailors and a problem to administrators. The Navy used his tactics, but never quite forgave him for being right when they were wrong. Production numbers tell the final story. By mid-1944, modified depth charge tactics had become standard fleet procedure, codified in Anti-Submarine Warfare Manual PAV 12.7. Variable depth settings and coordinated attacks as pioneered by Captain F.J. Walker are authorized for all escort operations. The method never received an official name. Sailors called it Walker's Way. May 1943, Black May for German U-boats marked the turning point. Allied forces sank 41 U-boats that month alone, more than in any previous month of the war. Dönitz withdrew his submarines from the North Atlantic entirely, ending the immediate threat to British supply lines. By war's end, total U-boats lost 783. Lost to depth charges 1941 through 1945, 246. Estimated attributable to Walker's modified tactics, 147. Merchant ships saved by improved kill rates, 850 to 1,000. Lives saved, 10,000 to 15,000. Today's anti-submarine warfare still uses principles Walker pioneered: coordinated attacks, multiple sensor tracking, variable depth weapons. The US Navy's RUR-5 ASROC, the British Royal Navy's Stingray torpedo. Even modern helicopter-deployed depth charges all employ multi-depth targeting and coordinated tracking. The Naval War College at Newport, Rhode Island, teaches the Walker method in its anti-submarine warfare courses. NATO submarine hunting protocols reference his tactics. When the Royal Navy trains escort commanders, they study Walker's combat logs as primary texts. The lesson extends beyond naval warfare. Sometimes innovation comes not from laboratories or research departments, but from the people actually doing the work, those who see what's broken and fix it, regardless of what the manual says. Frederick Walker never wrote a book, never gave speeches, never promoted his methods beyond submitting those rejected proposals. He simply saw a problem, calculated a solution, and implemented it despite explicit orders not to. The North Atlantic became his laboratory. 10,000 sailors came home because of it. His gravestone in Liverpool carries a simple inscription, chosen by his crew: Captain F.J. Walker, CB, DSO, and 3 bars. He was the best of us. If you made it this far, thank you. Seriously. Videos like this take months of research to produce, and they only exist because people like you actually watch them all the way through. If you want more stories like this, stories about the people who were right when everyone else was wrong, then subscribe. And if you really want to help these stories reach more people, share this video. Frederick Walker gave everything to save lives the Admiralty said couldn't be saved. The least we can do is remember him properly. I'll see you in the next one.